We've been talking about this. America losing its AAA credit rating for the first time in history, downgraded now by Standard & Poor's to AA+. So will this downgrade force Washington to get its act together? Maybe. Let's bring in our power panel. Wiehl, Mercedes Colwin are both Fox News legal analyst, and Deneen Borelli is a fellow with Project 21, Daily Caller columnist, and Fox News contributor. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday. So downgraded to AA+. And this coming on the heels of a lot of polls out there right now. Congress, members of Congress down in the polls. President Obama down in the polls. Do you think that this will force them to get their act together?
Well, I love who has the optimism in all of this. Barney Frank, the congressman of Massachusetts. Remember, he was overseeing everything when we had the first crash, if you want to call it that. Now he's saying, well, I'm optimistic. This is going to bring people together. What irony on that? I mean, if the man there wasn't on top of it, how can he be assuming that now everything is going to be fine?
He also said that the S&P or Standard & Poor's was basically trying to make themselves relevant, I think, as well.
They've been relevant. I mean, this is no surprise. They have been telegraphing you have a serious problem. And the #1 reason for the downgrading is the animosity between the members of Congress. You have to work together, especially the way the plan works. You only have the $900 billion in the first part, and then you have a $1.2 trillion. The second part, you have to continue to work and have a dialogue together. And now, of course, S&P says, we're not really confident you're going to be able to pull this off.
And the $1.2 trillion being up to that super Congress. And to your point, how do we know that they'll be able to come to some resolution?
They're just passing the buck, passing the blame from one group to another. The problem in Washington, D.C. is the spending. You have Obama and the Senate who refuse to cut spending to the degree that is necessary. That is why all this has happened. But, you know, who knows what's going to happen? I think this is a gross irresponsibility on all of their part.
And meanwhile, who's getting hurt? It's everybody outside of Washington with our credit cards. Should we spend? Should we not spend? What's going to happen? Should we just keep the money under the mattress? And that anxiety, I think, is fueling what's happening on Wall Street right now.
When an average Joe goes to the bank and says, I'd like to take a loan out, they're going to say, I'm sorry, we're not certain you're going to be able to do this. So when it hits your credit cards, when it hits your mortgages, when it hits your student loans, that's when there's going to be this huge uprising. That's what this is all talking about. The fact that our creditworthiness has dropped down means it's going to trickle down to every one of us.
It's embarrassing. We're the United States of America. You know, the nation's largest economy.
And we were forewarned, as Mercedes said, for a long time.
Well, our debt to GDP is 100%.
Right.
That's insane.
Okay, so let's move on to this next topic. We'll decide if this is insane or not. A Guatemalan judge is now ordering a Missouri family to return their adopted daughter, saying that the girl was kidnapped as part of a human trafficking ring before the adoption ever took place. So should they be forced to give up the girl? Apparently, the parents did not know about this ring, had nothing to do with it. So legally, Lise,
it's always in the best interest of the child. That's what you look towards. You know, what is in the best interest long term for this child? This child was abducted, and apparently neither the mother nor the adopting parents knew that there was an abduction. They were part of that. But the bottom line is, you've had this little girl now with them for nearly all of her life. She's growing up in the United States, apparently doing very well. And, you know, should she have to go back, a judge here in this country anyway would look at best interest of the child. And yet, biological parents usually trump.
They have a huge, and that's what may happen, because obviously there is no jurisdiction. The Guatemalan judge has no jurisdiction over the U.S.
What about Interpol? Could they come in and find the girl and take her legally?
They can't. There has to be a court order. I mean, there have been this talk, but it has to have some sort of government intervention on our part. So there has to be someone stepping forward. Some U.S. district court judge, a judge, will have to adhere to it.
Ruling that it is in the best interest of the child for her to go back to her biological mother.
I totally agree with your point. But it's a really sad situation for all parties involved. And this happens all the time, which is another thing that's really unfortunate. But it will be up to the courts to decide, and I totally agree that it will be the decision made that's in the best interest of the child.
There has to be more due diligence, though, seriously, because now this child is in this country, like Lee said. That is so completely tragic. Imagine, we don't even know if she's bilingual. Rip her out of the U.S., put her back in Guatemala. What's her life going to be like?
We have to follow it for sure and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. But isn't the bigger issue to figure out what's going on with these abductions?
Yeah,
Stop those.
Definitely. But we have to wrap up, and we will come back right after the